Welcome to the Cast, where we bring you all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. Today we are joined by Anthony Guastella, a certified health coach who specializes in breaking down complex wellness topics into actionable, understandable strategies. After overcoming significant personal health challenges, Anthony became passionate about helping others achieve a life of vitality, freedom, and resilience. He brings a practical, no nonsense approach to topics like nutrition, Hormetic Stress, mental health, and mindset, making him an ideal guide for technical professionals seeking to optimize both performance and well-being in high-demand fields. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. It's an honor.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. Your journey from overcoming health challenges to becoming a coach is quite fascinating. So, for our audience of problem solvers, what was the key debugging step you took after figuring out your own health?
Absolutely, man. Just like you said, definitely overcome a story to become a coach. And I actually had a Lyme disease diagnosis for 6 years. And essentially, through this, man, I experienced every symptom that you can imagine, health problems such as joint issues, fibromyalgia, thyroid issues. And man, I was going through the hardest times. And essentially, I was left with two decisions. I can either be a victim or a victor, right? I can listen to the outside sources that are telling me I can't get well, or I can listen to my heart and actually heal, which is what I did. And you asked me the number one thing that could actually help me, and that was my mind, man. My mind was the foundation. Really going through all those circumstances and understanding there's always another way, always persisting through these times. Because if I knew what I knew then, what I know now, it would take me 6 months, right? So, like I said, learning all the tools of wellness and personal development, mindset, and being on the other side of it now, man, I'm just on fire to help as many people as I possibly can and take control of their health, their mind, and so they can make their dreams a reality, essentially.
That is indeed inspiring. So, tech professionals are famous for long hours, uh, high stress, and constant screen time. So, from your perspective, what is the single biggest vulnerability in this lifestyle that they often ignore?
That's a great question, man, because, being in the health space, obviously use a lot of technology, right? I'm on the laptop 3 hours a day doing work, writing articles, doing research. What I find is to create an excellent workspace. Essentially, we're going to be doing the technology, but can we actually reduce fatigue while we're on it? While I'm on a laptop, I use certain softwares, right? So I don't know if your audience is familiar with the concept of blue light. And artificial blue light is very kind of detrimental to our health in a variety of ways because sunlight, we have full spectrum lighting, right? And with the artificial light, it's kind of imbalanced and it's not really required for biology. So it actually makes you fatigued much faster. So I actually use a software called Iris. There's a free version called Flux, but this kind of balances the spectrums of light within the laptop, right? And so it makes it much easier on the eyes. And what's interesting is it actually makes the screen red or this orangish hue. So it makes it much less fatiguing. And there's also something called flicker rate. Now, the flicker rate of lights on the screen is also known as pulsed width modulation. And this is lights turning on and off so fast, but your retina doesn't perceive it. So this actually creates brain fog and things like that. But these softwares kind of mitigate that. It makes it much more biologically friendly to do the work. And personally speaking, like before and after, it's such a huge difference. We don't really notice it. I mean, just because we just do the work. That's one tool I use. I can go deeper into that, but that's what I got right now.
Fantastic. So, you break down complex health topics into simple principles. So, what are one or two foundational non-negotiable wellness habits that developer pulling an all-nighter should actually prioritize?
Absolutely. when it comes to health, there's so many different pillars of wellness, right? Now, we usually just think of nutrition and exercise, which of course those are two excellent ones. But there's so many more in between that. But I do think nutrition is actually something worth talking about here. So when it comes to nutrition, that's kind of lay a background how this can be beneficial for technology workers and how you can kind of take control of your mind in a sense. Because what people need to understand is your brain is made from the food that you eat. The cells, they require certain nutrients, your neurotransmitters, right? So in order for you to function properly, like there's certain nutrients that are required, and it's going to be an extreme difference if you're deficient in these things, right? So briefly, what are the pillars of nutrition that I like to talk about? Number one, eat real food. Now, real food is going to be classified as things you would find in nature. So meat, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, right? All these types of things, as opposed to over here in the States, we have like these crazy cereals like Fruity Pebbles, right? That's something made in the lab. You're not going to find that anywhere in nature. So that's number one. Number two is eat organic. Now, organic is important for a variety of reasons, but here's why. Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, rodenticides, the suffix "side" means to kill, right? So this is designed to kill small pests and things of that nature. But this is also neurogenic and estrogenic. Now, what that means for your audience is it disrupts your nervous system and your hormonal system. So basically how you function as a human, right? So that's why it's important to eat organic. And also, we have to keep in mind that everything was organic up until recent times. It was just, we didn't call it that because it was just food. Like pesticides didn't exist and things like that. So that's number two. Number three. So if I can say those two, like those are like the main two things, just simple things, right? 80%. But now if you want to get more into it, I would say eat locally. Now, local food, such as from farmers markets, is going to be much more nutrient dense from foods that you get from across the world because as soon as a crop is picked, it's going to start to lose its nutrients right then and there. But now we're going to have like food sitting on the shelf for weeks, right? As opposed to just getting it perhaps picked at the farmer's market that day. So it's going to be an upgrade in your health just from a nutrient standpoint if you do as much local food as possible. Now, living in the world that we live in, it's great to get food shipped from across the world because there's so many different things. You know, it's not always going to be perfect, but it's something to keep in mind. And the last two, eat according to your genetics and ancestry, right? So now these are semi-important in my mind because you may have a genetic predisposition to certain diseases like diabetes, right? Now, that does not mean that you're going to get diabetes, but there may be an inclination that say this is something I need to watch out for. So take these things into consideration, and there's certain tests that can go into that.
That is very interesting. So, elemental health is a compelling framework. So for someone whose world is digital, I mean, for someone like who spends a long time writing codes, sitting behind a screen, EMFs and stuff like that. So how can they consciously reconnect with the basics like air, water, and light to improve their focus and energy?
So glad you brought that up, man. Like I said before, we just think of nutrition and exercise, right, as the two pillars, which of course, but then there's other ones as you just mentioned. So how to optimize your air, your water, your light, electromagnetic frequencies, and earthing. Now, all these are kind of broad topics. So I don't know if you want me to focus on a specific one or go over them briefly. Like, how would you like me to approach that?
Well, maybe if you could touch each of them briefly, that would, give a more elaborate response.
Okay, for sure. So we can start with air. Air, let's give a brief overview of that. Now, we breathe in about 30,000 liters of air a day. Oxygen is the number one nutrient. So that's a very important thing. So we want to have this clean, and everything that goes in your system is going to be going throughout your entire body. We don't really take that in consideration, right? But then we have like certain diseases that can be caused from things you breathe in, right? Some from like cigarettes and things like that. But essentially, how we optimize air is through some simple strategies. Number one is going to be the way that you breathe. Now, your nose is designed for breathing. it actually contains something called primaria cilia. Now, this is like a filtration system of the nose. Like the air kind of gets filtered through your nose. It's also produces something called nitric oxide. It's like this antiviral molecule as well, so it kind of protects you from viruses. Now, breathing from the mouth, which is unfortunately a habit that a lot of people have taken on, actually starts to cause certain problems because the mouth does not have these filtration mechanisms. Now, it's not like you're never going to breathe through your mouth, but if you can develop a habit of nasal breathing, that would be number one. Number two, it's going to have plants. Now, I actually have snake plant right up there, and snake plant is great because it releases most of its molecules at night as opposed to during the day, which is what most plants do. So kind of like while it filters the air while you're sleeping, so you'll get high quality sleep like that. And there was a study done with NASA because they're very interested in certain like plants and things like that for air filtrations. So the ones that they came up with was snake plant and English ivy. Those are the two that come to mind right now. So those are just two ones to think about. Number three, when it comes to air, I would say have a high quality air filtration system. Oh, we have to keep in mind that usually the indoor air is going to be much more polluted than the outdoor air due to certain like cleaning products we're using, certain like off gassing from furniture and things like that. So having a high quality HEPA air filter or high efficiency particulate accumulator, that's what it stands for. And what this does is it filters down to 0.001 microns. So this makes the air very clean. So these are very handy to have around. Other than that, make sure you can open the windows if you can. Just get that fresh air circulating because when it comes to air, if you're just breathing the stale air inside, all the windows are closed. Look, stagnation breeds pollution. So you want airflow throughout your home. That's just something to keep in mind. So next would be water. Now, water, man, it's so important. It's really a super highway through transporting neurotransmitters, hormones, immune cells throughout your entire body, right? There are about 70% of our bodies are made from water. But now what that means is we're actually creating new tissues from that water. And those are just kind of like simple things. It's also responsible for maintaining DNA, mitochondrial support, and your brain, which is doing like the technological work, is actually made up as 80% water. Now, we hear our brain is like 70% fat, right? But what people don't understand about that is that's a dry weight. So when you dissect the brain, take it out, that's 80% fat. But the brain in your head right now is 80% water. So you want to stay hydrated. So when it comes to water quality, there are certain pillars of that. Now, I'm here in America, and we have the municipal water supply. Now, I want to say briefly that we are very fortunate to have that because there are certain countries that they're drinking water that is literally making them sick. So we have to keep this in mind before I go into like the atrocities of the municipal water supply. But just we have to have perspective with that, right? So this also contains a lot of fluoride, which is not something I'll need to go too deep into, but it was essentially originally developed as a thyroid suppressing medication. Now, there are two types of fluoride: sodium fluoride and calcium fluoride. Calcium fluoride is natural, while sodium fluoride is the pharmaceutical drug, which is unfortunately in the water. Now, I can go into reasons why, but I don't see that as necessary at this moment. But it's been studied to kind of be a neurotoxic and other things, while chlorine also, it's like I said, it's good for killing like the bacteria. It makes people sick and things like that, but also known as bleach. Chlorine is bleach and is disrupting our microbiome because you can kind of consider it as taking in an antibiotic, right? You don't want to be drinking that like a gallon of water a day. Like they say these things are in tiny quantities. Okay. But if you're doing this, like however much water you're drinking every single day, that's going to add up, and we're not stacking the conditions in our favor, essentially. So, there's heavy metals, pharmaceutical drugs, and missed water supply. It's terrible, honestly. But going down that line, we have something called well water. Now, well water is a great upgrade. So when we think of well water, we can think of it immature water because we're drilling down into kind of aquifers, and it's not gone through the Earth's hydrological process, so it's very mineral dense, right? So it's usually good for the most part, but we have to understand that it may be high in certain things. So just do your testing, right? And lastly, would be a reverse osmosis system, which is going to be most applicable for the majority of people, which is what I use. And just like the HEPA air filter, this filters down to 0.003 microns. So it's getting all the bacteria, all the things I just talked about out of the water. So you're left as a clean slate. But there's a problem because in nature, there's no such thing as pure H2O. Everywhere you go, whether it's oceans, streams, rivers, there's always minerals in the water. And we're designed to drink minerals with water in it. I guess if you don't, it's going to take minerals from your body because it takes minerals in order to process water. And you can fix that using a high quality sea salt like Celtic salt, Redmond's real salt, Himalayan salt. Can I add that back in the water? Kind of upgrade your water from the reverse osmosis.
Well, you actually did justice to the question. So, moving on, mental stamina is as crucial as technical skills in our fields. So, what role does mindset play in not just preventing burnout, but in sustaining creativity and innovative thinking?
Absolutely. So I'm actually going to turn to a tool of meditation, right? Now, why this is important is because we can train our minds to be focused under pressure, to be calm under pressure. That's an invaluable tool, especially in this world of distractions that we live in, man. It's so invaluable to kind of train your mind to be focused. And I feel like this is catching on, like a lot of professional athletes are doing this. There's so many different forms of it. You ultimately got to find what works for you. But if we can not be so stressed under pressure, because we have to keep in mind that it's taking resources from our brain, right? This creativity. And if we can give ourselves an opportunity to relax, kind of create this white space in our day, give ourselves a space to relax, because we have something called the default mode network in our brain, which is basically designed for problem solving under the rest and digest state of the nervous system. So when you're relaxed, your brain automatically goes to work solving these unconscious problems. So that's what I would say. And mindset, I mean, I can expand that a little bit. Like for me, for creativity, like I write articles, I podcast, I coach, and some things that help me stay creative. It's just staying the flow of the day. So being purpose oriented during the day, having a mission, knowing your values, right? Because when you kind of have these things throughout your day that you're doing, you stay in this flow state. Like I usually get ideas for writing while I'm working out, taking a cold shower, doing all these crazy things, right? And I like to ask myself empowering questions. I like to keep my audience in mind, people I'm serving, the people who, are really here to, better themselves, to make themselves healthy, right? So I really keep that in my mind, my purpose. And because I notice a lot of us, man, we keep these questions in our mind that are just kind of negative. It may be like, because how you do anything is how you do everything. So we have these long things that are these stress points throughout our day. It's going to affect our work, right? So just kind of being mindful of our questions and staying on track with our mission.
Amazing. So, what's a common piece of conventional health advice that you've completely wrong for the high pressure sedentary tech work style?
What comes to mind right now is like you have to do everything by yourself. Like, because what people don't understand is when you look at chronic diseases, it's due to chronic stress. Like 80% of physician related illnesses are due to stress. So if we can find a way in our lives to kind of make ourselves more resilient to stress, as well as learn how to kind of diminish it when it comes, because it will come. It's not like stress is bad. It's just like if it's in the wrong amounts for the wrong amount of time, because stress can be very beneficial if we kind of utilize it in our favor, right? So just, I would say, just don't follow a conventional diet advice. Like we have to go to the other sources, like certain podcasts, certain great people to listen to, and just learning how to manage that stress response. That's what comes to mind at the moment.
Hey, so talking about stress in tech, some people often see stress as a badge of honor. So you talk about hormetic stressors. So what's the difference between bad stress that burns us out and the good stress that actually makes us more resilient?
Great question. So, a hormetic stressor is essentially a short-term bout of stress that you engage in. And then when you give yourself an ability to recover, you become stronger. Now, exercise is going to be the perfect example of this. Everyone knows, when you work out, you're creating these lactic acid, inflammation, all these types of things that are actually tearing our bodies down. But it's a good thing because if we do that and recover, we actually become more resilient. It's not just our muscular system, it's our nervous system as well. You're working out your nervous system while you're lifting weights. So that's just one example, but there's actually 5 of these as well, just like with the elementals. So you can get into so exercise, cold therapy, heat therapy, like saunas, and then there's fasting and sunlight. Um, I don't need to get on that unless you want me to, but essentially, I think the mindset piece is pivotal as well. Like looking at things as a challenge rather than a threat. So if we look at things as a threat, like certain stress response, we kind of like it's going to dictate our response in a sense, right? If we look at I don't know, like a relational stress, for example, if you look at that as a threat, no, it's we may not do the necessary work to process it and get stronger from it. But if we look at it as a challenge, hey, this is here for a reason. How can I grow from this? Have this growth mindset, trust the process, don't rush the process, right? And then get to the other side and become better. And what I find with the technology work that I do is that, success is something you attract by the person that you become. So the more I work on myself, the more I develop my skills and values and upgrade my character, the work I do is a reflection of that, right? Because you are doing the work and the key word is you. So when you upgrade you, your work is better.
Interesting. So, if a listener is feeling constantly drained and stuck in reactivity mode, so at work, yeah. So, what is one small, tangible first step that you would give them to start reclaiming their energy and focus?
One small step, I would say stay hydrated, man. Get that high quality water. Like when I drink water, so wake up with a hydration practice so you can get like the majority of your water in. So maybe what I do is like I'll have like maybe 24 ounces of water in the morning with some high quality salt. So I add maybe like a teaspoon of Redmond's real salt. And what that does is kind of like gives your body the necessary minerals because we're talking about stress here. And what people understand is minerals are probably the number one nutrient that is required for handling stress because they're taking resources from your body. Like your adrenal glands, they require massive amounts of minerals. Cortisol is the number one stress hormone, right? And all these things take resources from our body. And what I find, man, is like, because I can look back in days when I wasn't healthy and when I am now, and just by the just by the sheer act of being healthy, you're so much more resilient to things. Like things just don't phase you as much, and you don't even try because your body is a resource. But most of us are walking around with a lack of internal resources physically, and we wonder why things are just, so jumping out at us. And so, like, we're so easily stressed by things. And if we just take control of those inner resources, just start taking those small steps every single day, I think, things are going to be a lot easier for people.
Great. So, from your experience, what's the most underutilized tool or strategy for improving sleep quality, especially for people whose brains are wired from solving technical problems all day?
Absolutely. So, there's so many strategies to improve sleep quality. There are 2 that stick out. I can say the number one thing for me that I did was get some blackout curtains. So when we sleep, we have a hormone called melatonin. Now, melatonin is a get good sleep hormone, and it requires 2 things in order to actually be produced in our bodies. That is a completely dark environment and a consistent time. Most of us, we have street lights or some type of lighting coming out our windows while we're sleeping, and we're so used to it. But the reality is we don't want to see our hands in front of our face. If moonlight, that's all good. But if you have a room with light in it, any light at all, do your best to kind of get some blackout curtains, and that will be probably one of the top things to improve your sleep quality. Number 2, I would say sleep in a cold room. Now, all these things are becoming more mainstream, especially in health and wellness space. But the reality is just don't sleep hot because we go a we undergo a process called thermal regulation while we sleep. Now, everywhere you go in the world, the temperature drops. But we have these like beds, which are great, but some of us sleep hot and it's disrupting our sleep cycles. So if you can turn the temperature down, I mean, the research goes like 65 degrees. I mean, whatever works for you. Just the reality is just don't sleep hot. And those are sleep quality things, but I mean, there's certain strategies for people who need to fall asleep. But that's what I got right now.
Great. So, how can tech leaders and managers foster a culture that values sustainable health and performance over pure hours logged, ultimately leading to better innovation?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, you're asking how can we perform with high quality, and instead of just doing these long hours without the quality. That's what I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah, I get that a lot as well, man. Because we want to have sustained excellence, right? And what I find is when we keep all these health practices throughout the day, it makes it so much easier. Being a creator of content, like when I feel on top of my game, like it's mind, body, and spirit type of thing, right? So I got all these physical things in, but also it's important to be adaptable because life is going to happen. We're not going to have everything perfect all the time. So we have to learn how to kind of adjust as we go, right? Now, for the people who have like this long work hours and we're just kind of frustrated if we're not getting our highest quality workout, right? I would just, man, I would just pause and assess what you actually need. Like, do you have your nutrition down? Are you sleeping well? Are you moving? Are you working out? All these things. Like, what is it you actually need to address? This is a personal question, right? Because things that are weighing us down, maybe our relationships, right? What is it? What are these consistent things that are just weighing you down? Ask yourself that, right? And then we can take action from there. And there's a lot of strategy within that, but just the first step is awareness, man.
awesome. So, for students in our audience who are just entering demanding fields, so what is one wellness habit that you wish you had built much earlier in your life?
Yeah. So honestly, man, I started changing my diet when I was like 12. So I was doing this for a long time. But, I'm 27 at the moment. But just thinking as a general thing for people, I would just say, man, start with nutrition because it's something that you're already doing, right? We're already eating food as opposed to like adopting a new habit of going to the gym. That may be a little more difficult because we're already doing the thing. And just start with these simple steps. Like if you're eating a highly processed food diet at the moment, just start with small steps. I mean, some people like to do it all at once. That works for some people, but I find the majority of people, they need to have an on ramp. So maybe just start changing up your breakfast, right? If you don't, and you don't have to be perfect. Adopt the mindset of progress over perfection. So maybe you're not eating organic, but you're eating vegetables now, right? So that's something to celebrate, as opposed to eating highly processed cereal and bagels and all that donuts in the morning. Because if you start to upgrade, just make the small upgrades every single day, and you start to recognize this virtuous circle, right? So you start to recognize the change within yourself that will create more motivation, inspiration to actually make bigger changes. So I would start with nutrition and go from there.
And that's amazing. So, the tech industry is built on optimization. So, what does optimizing for freedom look like in the context of our daily health choices?
Absolutely, man. Freedom to me is everything. You know, talking about health here, I mean, I like to talk about being the greatest versions of ourselves in all aspects. So health, wealth, relationships, character, and like I said, mindset is a foundation because we don't want to just like do work. We want to be the best versions of ourselves every day so we can show up for people who need us, right? Talking about health, freedom, I mean, there's so much within that. I think education is a big part of it because a lot of us here in the United States, we're kind of in the dark about wellness. We don't really understand the truth because there's so much. I hear this from so many people, like they're just confused because there's so much information from everywhere. And the reality it is, what you need to do, man, is listen to your heart. You need to listen to yourself. Of course, like you need to learn, but then you have to understand that you ultimately make decisions at the end of the day. There are people who are huge advocates of every single diet that you can imagine. And they start to say that their way is the way. The reality is your way is the way. You need to find a personalized health routine that works for you. And that's not that these people mean any harm. They're doing things that work for them and they see what works for their patients. But, in the traditional medical system, I think it's great for emergencies for the most part. I mean, because chronic disease gets worse every single year. There's something that's not adding up essentially. So that's what I would say, man. But essentially taking control of your health in terms of freedom, it's about having personal agency over your mind, body, and spirit. So not only knowing what works for you and doing experiments, but actually, developing the internal habits like the discipline, the fortitude to because discipline equals freedom. The more that we can stay disciplined in our habits, we get the results that we want. That's what it is to me. Because when you get the results, that's true freedom. Because you can live a life of immediate gratification, and you may have the pleasure up front, but you're not going to get the results that you want in life. But if you stay disciplined and stay the course, you do the hard things up front, and you're going to live. What people don't understand is that through that process, you forge your character. And that character is going to sustain the success that you want. So living a life of virtue, having those habits to get the results of health and stay healthy in the long term. That's what it's all about, man.
Wonderful. Part of the theme of this podcast is centered around innovation. So, for that reason, there's a common question I like to ask every guest that I interview on the show before we finally wrap up the interview section. So, tell us, what does innovation mean to you, and how does it relate to your field? I mean, your work in the context of your work, bridging the gap between health and performance. I mean, I like to hear the meaning of the word innovation from your own perspective.
Absolutely. Innovation to me starts with overcoming your story and overcoming yourself because we are here for a reason. We have to understand we all have a purpose, and growth and service is the foundation of that purpose, right? And once we actually discover who we actually are at our core, our values, our standards, you are a unique one of one. And you have to understand you're born for greatness. You have excellence within you. You are innovative as you are. The problem is most of us are not living up to our full potential. We're walking around a subpar version of ourselves. We're kind of caught up in the average of the world. But we are designed for greatness. And your innovation lies within overcoming yourself and becoming the greatest version of you every single day. Because from that place, man, you are, like I said, like you are a boss for real. And you have to understand that you have these gifts, these things that no one else can do but you. You, like I keep on saying, you are one of one, and the world needs you, right? Like you can be a model and the light for those around you. That's what innovation is for me. Like really at your core, like be yourself because you are amazing and overcoming all these challenges in your life because your challenges are going to be the things that develop your gifts, right? Your mess is your message. We all have a story. Don't hold on to the past anymore. Live in this moment. Because when you live in this moment free and clear, you are just like on fire to make as much change as you possibly can. And the story never ends, man. It's always a journey. And that's what it's all about, being a light for others and, just never settle and strive for excellence.
Oh, that is indeed inspiring. Finally, for our listeners who are ready to take that first step towards better health and performance, where's the best place for them to find your work, learn more about your principles, or maybe just contact you?
Absolutely, man. So you can find me at my website, anthonyguastella.com. This is where I write so many articles about wellness, personal development, mindset. I do coaching. So if people want to be coached, there's free courses, free content. And I also have a podcast called Anthony Guastella Wellness. This we talk about everything personal development related, wellness. We bring on, great experts in their field to really kind of make complex topics simple so people can actually apply them in their own lives, right? So we want to make things fun for people and make like wellness awesome so people are kind of attracted to that so they can be the light and model for others. That's what we do every single day, man. And I appreciate you having me on the show.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's been a really great conversation with you, and I am indeed honored to have you on the show today, Anthony.
Yeah, thank you, man. It was an honor for sure.